The last type of equation is a quadratic that does not have the same trig function all the way through. So here I've got a cosine squared, I've got a sine in the same problem. So I've got to convert one of the two. And here's what we're going to do. You are going to replace the squared term with an appropriate Pythagorean identity that matches the middle term. In other words, the middle term is what the whole problem is going to be. So here I've got the sine of x in the middle. That means my whole problem has to be in terms of sine. So what Pythagorean identity relates cosine squared and sine? And that Pythagorean identity is sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. So cosine squared, if I have sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1, and I've got cosine squared of x is the same thing as 1 minus sine squared of x. So I'm going to replace cosine squared of x with this 1 minus sine squared of x. So 2 times 1 minus sine squared of x plus 3 sine of x minus 3 is equal to 0. And now at this point, it's all algebra to solve this out. Here I've got this 2 in front. I can distribute the 2 into both pieces. 2 minus 2 sine squared of x plus 3 sine of x minus 3 is equal to 0. Here, 2 and negative 3 I can combine. Negative 2 sine squared of x plus 3 sine of x minus 1 is equal to 0. We don't like a negative in front of our squared term when we do our multiply, add, choose. So let's multiply this whole thing through by negative 1. So 2 sine squared of x minus 3 sine of x plus 1 is equal to 0. And now I can do 2 times 1, which is 2. What are the factors of 2 that add up to negative 3? Well, let's see. Factors of 2 add to negative 3 are going to be negative 2 and negative 1. So I'm going to rewrite this middle term with negative 2 and negative 1. So 2 sine squared of x minus 2 sine of x minus 1 sine of x plus 1 is equal to 0. Negative 2 and negative 1 became my two factors here. And then I can do my factor by grouping. So my first one I can pull out a 2 sine of x, and then I'm left with sine of x minus 1. My back also has to be a sine of x minus 1, which means I had to factor out a negative 1 there. Factors are everything inside parentheses, everything outside parentheses. So 2 sine of x minus 1, and then sine of x minus 1 is equal to 0. Set each quantity equal to 0. 2 sine of x minus 1 equals 0. Sine of x minus 1 equals 0. First equation, add 1 and then divide by 2. So sine of x is equal to 1/2. Second one, we'll just add 1. Then we'll take the sine inverse to both sides. So sine and sine inverse cancel. Second one here, take sine inverse to both sides. And here, the two quadrants that sine is positive in is the first and second. So what angles in the first and second quadrant give me a positive 1/2? That's going to be pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6 from your unit circle. And then sine inverse being a 1, that's one of the angles that's on the axes. And sine is the y value, so we look at the point 0, 1, which is pi over 2. We don't need to put the plus 2 pi n stuff because once again we're on the interval from 0 to 2 pi. So those two answers will suffice.